My mother was active because, well, before civil rights. I mean, she came from a very German family, but she was allowed to form her own opinions and to have freedom of thought in many ways. So she broke a lot of the molds that she was taught to believe. And out of ignorance and so forth, they were good-hearted people, but she was one of a kind, and she was the oldest daughter out of many sisters and one brother. So she transcended her niche that she grew up in, and by well, she was an artist foremost of all. She was an artist. That's her was her calling, and she went to the Maryland Institute of Art and ended up marrying her teacher and also her student. What do you call it? A student that in her class was also a teacher, which was Leonard Bahr, my dad. And being both artists, they settled in Howard County eventually. And that was in 1947. In 1950s, she started changing. And to me, it was God working in her life, because all the same attitudes that she had growing up were just changing, absolutely turning. And not all at once, but gradually. And it filtered down to the children. I'm the youngest, and the first experience I had in her attitude and her outlook and her action was when she took me to Gwynn Oak Park. I believe it would be the late 50s when they were demonstrating. And I was just a young kid then. But it opened my eyes to people's emotions, to these heavy emotions I had not seen before. And we were at the front gate, and we saw people picketing, demonstrating to get in. And we stood there and watched incoming cars coming in, and just the racial epithets that were thrown out, and the hatred just really bothered me. And I was too young to understand the reasonings, but I did understand there was a lot of emotion involved that was warlike, which I kind of believed that the voice and the loudness, the anger, the arguments, the whatever, is a type of war. She couldn't really explain to me all that was going on because I was very young, but she let me learn by myself to process that on my level, and always was there to keep my eyes open and keep me reading and keep me questioning things. She was a fantastic role model in that. But as my life continued on, I went to college, and she was starting to get into civil rights more. The people that she started reading about people, and she had an idealism, and she had a desire to be a missionary, and she had all these things going on with her art. And she started reading things like Albert Schweitzer, books on Albert Schweitzer, and starting to read his life, and E. Stanley Jones, and Cesar Chavez, and a bunch of other people. And I think those years were telling her that there was a lot of hypocrisy going on, and she felt that inner need as a woman as an artist and as a homemaker and a mother, that she needed to be involved. And it was not easy because her family, her siblings, did not necessarily agree with her. She would go to spiritual retreats and so forth and so on. Another recollection is that when I would live periodically, as branching out from home, my mother was involved with the Black Panthers inner city breakfast programs. And she would drive her VW Bug downtown on Saturdays and feed the kids, who she dearly loved. She loved children. And I think what she loved was the innocence that they had. She saw beyond all that tension and turmoil of the life and the abuse and the things that they didn't have, the poverty that they didn't have, the poverty they were in. But she just saw them and loved them for who they were, these adorable, innocent kids. And so that was one avenue that she could give to make a change. She was also very interested in juvenile rights, prisoner rights, juveniles. And she would write to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Judge in Baltimore City, and talk to him about what was being done with juvenile offenders being mistreated. Things started to change. She wrote to Perrin Mitchell all the time. They were very good friends, and she would just keep asking him things. What can she do? And he would give her ideas, and she would give him ideas, and they would mutually encourage each other, which was a wonderful friendship to have over the years. And then another instance was, in a sense, this is a woman who we're not speaking from a business standpoint, where she had a shop or something like that, and she went. These were a woman at home, a homemaker, and an artist who just sought out these opportunities, and she became involved with an exchange program, or a program where they allowed some inner city kids to come out and spend a summer in the country. I don't remember all the details, but so we had this wonderful little boy come out, and he spent a summer with us in Howard County, in Elk Ridge. And one of the usual things was going to church. Well, she took him to her little Methodist church, and that was the last time she went back, because they snubbed him, and they snubbed her for bringing him in. And she had no clue that was going to happen, or else she wouldn't have put him through that. But that was the last time she went back to that little church, and that's very sad, because it was one of the first churches in Maryland, and that was not of God, of course. That did not still her faith in God at all, but she just put her energies in other places. And I confirmed even that through another preacher who was in a nearby church, and I said, have you ever gone and preached there? And he said, oh, it's don't you know it's a racist church? And, oh my golly, in this day and age. He said, yeah. So she learned lessons along the way, but she thoroughly enjoyed Quincy is his name, and just looking after children, just trying to help children.
Can you tell me what her opinion of Martin Luther King and his efforts in the civil rights struggle?
Yes, Dr. King was an icon for her, not an idol, but an icon. That when he talked about, I think the quote, and I may not know the quote by heart, but it's when someday when my children will not be judged by the color of their skin. That's universal. Nobody wants to be judged by the color of their skin. And that really touched her because he wanted to do right, not just for the African Americans and blacks and whites and Indians and Chicanos. He wanted, it was a universal plea and a statement, and I think that's how she saw things. People are people, and people are or have such inner dignity and respect, no matter who they are, where they come from. And it's not what you do, it's your character, the quality of your character that makes you who you are. And I think when he said that and he acted that out in his life, she just, I mean, she glammed on it. She was like, this is somebody I would want to support in any way I could. It touched her spiritually and just a role model, I think, for her children and for her community. He was a true Christian. He followed Jesus. And that's what she always tried to do, was follow Jesus, follow the words. What do you do for your neighbor? How do you love your neighbor? So it's not a matter of, well, this cause is popular now or that. It's not. It's just doing the right thing. And she had that mind for justice. She didn't wait for somebody to ask her to do it. She called. She wrote. She participated. If it didn't happen, she asked questions. She wanted to know how to achieve things and make things happen. So all that wasn't, I mean, as children, and particularly the third child, could see that and emulate that. And I was so terribly proud of her that I you know, words can't express how proud I am of her of that.
Can you read one of the letters that, you have a letter that Martin Luther King sent to her?
I have this is a, yes, this is from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, 1960.
Okay, just intro that letter, just what you just said, and then if you could read the letter. Is it signed by Martin Luther King?
It is signed by him.
Okay, can you please read the letter? Just say this is a letter by, from the Southern Christian Leadership, Conference, and dated whatever, and then you can start to read the letter.
This is a letter from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, dated December 29th, 1960. It says, "Thank you for your encouraging and inspiring message which came to me during my arrest here in the state of Georgia. It is good to know of your interest. Such moral support is of inestimable value for the continuance of my humble efforts here in the South. With best wishes, I am sincerely yours, Martin Luther King, Jr." As I said, she always wrote, and she wrote the White House. She wrote every administration since Eisenhower. I have only a few of the letters because she died in a house fire in 1998 and much of her work was destroyed. So whatever I have has a burned mark on it because I got it from the fire. One of her pieces of art that she did in honor of Dr. King was an I Have a Dream collage, and that is owned by the National Office of the NAACP. I have been able to use her license plate, her original license plate, which is I Have a Dream. I wear her t-shirts, one which is take off on the Army slogan, "Be all you can be," except it says "Work for Peace." I wear her armband that says "Stop the Killing," and I put that in. I'm a window designer, and I put that in my displays in the window because I try to reach the neighborhood where my the store is, where I designed windows for the store. So civil rights is an ongoing issue. It's not, it just didn't start and stop. It's an ongoing issue on many, many levels. So my contribution to, at the present time, my current contribution is doing windows which have a message for the community, and I'm in your face with messages. I make people think, question, react in some manner, not to sell products, but to make them think and uplift them. So I was able to do a Dr. King window, and I put in an office and the armband on a white shirt with a black tie over a chair like he had just left, with a desk, protest signs scattered about, the Bible open, other books open, and his I Have a Dream speech in the front, and posters of him in the back and other history. And it caught so many people, so much attention from the passersby and the community. I got a lot of feedback, particularly from the male community. They were very touched by it. So I try to do more of those sorts of things and uplift the community, or give historical points or challenge them.
Do you feel that your mother's played a role in the civil rights movement, or the movement to desegregate, or for social justice? Do you feel that even no matter what her role was, whether it was a large role or a small role, do you feel that it made a difference?
Oh yes. Not only, I can't give you statistics, of course, but it made a difference in my life. It made a difference in my family's life, and it made a difference in her community.
Can I stop you for one
Sure.
second?
My mother's contribution in civil rights, in the role of civil rights, had a profound impact on my life, on my family's life, on her friends' life, her community, the groups that she was in, and the friendships she'd made through the preachers that she met and the politicians that she wrote to. It did have a profound impact, and I keep getting feedback on that. They remember her, and they remember her energy and contributions.
Can you tell me about her being voted Woman of the Year in 1999 by the state of Maryland?
Yes, she was voted Woman of the Year by the state of Maryland in 1999, a year after her passing, as its first woman artist. And her civil rights and other activism played a major role in that. I got to accept her award in her honor, and she is also written up in the Women of Achievement in the state of Maryland by Carolyn Stegman a year or two later. I gave, in the speech, I gave her through the viewpoint of not so much as her achievements, well, that was known and brought out, but really what God had done in her life to bring her to the fruition in her calling, to change her and to give her that grace and needed no, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
Sorry.
It happens to me all the time.
Well, to kind of go back, when I accepted her award, I did try to bring out her inner spirit, which is what caused her to do what she did and all that she could do for people. in that spirit of love. She loved people, and I think God's changing her and giving her that, leading her, allowed her to accomplish what she did. I think that was primary and focus. It's the inner character that's important, like Dr. King said. It's not all the big fluff, but it's what you do with your character and how you affect the individual person, be it the man on the street, your neighbor, or a large community, or March on Washington, which she was in that too, and just felt a part of the flow of making that change, of being a part of making that change.
If you want to go up with the intern while she scans them.
The only thing is, I didn't tell you about what my dad did for the artwork that I have in here. My dad did her portrait.
Tape in? Okay. He's got to put another tape in. So.
Is that okay?
Do you want to stop down for a minute? If we can take a short time.
Go for it. Thank you, sir.
Rolling.
Okay.
Rolling.
Can you tell me a little about your father?
My dad was a portrait artist, and he...
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you to start over again.
Okay.
Tell me your dad and his name, and then who he was, okay.
My father was named Leonard Bahr, and by profession he was a portrait artist. And when he married my mother, he married definitely his match. The two were quite a dynamic duo, you might say, both being artists, both having artistic temperaments. He had a heart of gold. He empathized with the poor and the needy, the underdog, you might say, of life. He was a Christian man. He loved the Lord, and he knew that internal spiritual walk. And when Dr. King was killed, he was not, it touched him inside, and he wanted to do something as well. And he was not the activist that my mother was, but it didn't say that, he watched what was going on, and he heard what was going on, and he supported my mother in her role. And he painted a portrait of Coretta Scott King and her son after Dr. King's death. And it is owned now by the Elk Ridge Heritage Society. It's a very large portrait. Along that vein, I'm not sure how to follow through with that. A train of thought.
Okay. What were his thoughts about your mother's activism?
My dad's thoughts about my mom's activism was, I guess, emotional at times. He worried about her. He talked with her. He wanted to talk things out. They communicated on different levels. They had different viewpoints about some political issues, but they did communicate. He supported her, allowed her to do what, to be the Florence Bahr she was created to be. He knew that she did not neglect the family or himself, but he did fix himself a few meals on occasion.